One of the world's oldest civilizations, India's rich heritage constitutes the single most important source of its soft power. Unlike many other nations that have homogenized or rather westernized their culture, India's diverse yet coherent cultural fabric spreads across the length and breadth of the country. I would like to invite Dr. Srinivasan Rangan, Associate Professor, IIM Bangalore. He completed his PhD at the Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania, under Robert Holthausen and Richard Sloan. He has taught at several academic institutions, including Northwestern University, the University of California at Davis, the University of Colorado at Boulder, the University of Texas at Dallas, Amrita School of Business, and the University of California at Berkeley. I invite Dr. Srinivasan to deliver a few words.
There's a little backstory to this, my being here. The first choice for this talk was my wife. She turned it down, and then they looked at 3 other professors. So I'm the 5th choice. So please lower your expectations. So first of all, I'd like to mention that I'm very happy to be here. I'm very Amrita always evokes a feeling of affection in my heart. And some people I know more well than others, Gopi and Smita and Vandana and others. And I'm very happy to see the students. The only thing I'm not so happy is why they're sitting in the back. Why don't they move in front? There are so many empty seats. I used to be a backbencher as a school student. Okay, so the other thing I want to mention before I forget is that we are supposed to be at lunch at 12:30. 1 o'clock is it? So I'm sorry, I'm between you and your lunch. Okay, so let me kind of talk about soft power. This is when Smita asked me to discuss soft power. I'd never heard about it. So that's another indicator how good this talk is going to be. Then I did a little Google search and I was not very happy with that. So I decided to go inside and find out what that soft power is. So let me start with this. Ms. Shruti has given me some inspiration. She started with some singing. So I think all of us are going to be singing in this symposium. So this year's ASTHRA will be a singing symposium. So if you will indulge me, I'll sing the song, not a full song, just one line, an Amma Bhajan. Okay, so let me start by, is it visible to the people at the back? It's pretty small, the font, right? I realize it's okay? Okay, you can watch it on your phone or something like that. Okay, our scriptures proclaim that everything, the fundamental reality underlying this universe is consciousness, right? So one word they use for it is chit or chid, right? And this chid, some in the Tantra philosophy, some of you might be familiar with it. This chid is referred to as Sadashiva. Okay. And along with this Sadashiva, inextricably intertwined with this Sadashiva is Shakti, which in English loosely translates as power. Right? So I'm going to start with Shakti. So the word Shakti is what is going to be the common thread in what I'm going to talk about. Okay? So actually Sadashiva and Shakti, you can't separate them. So Sadashiva, if you think in terms of energy, I mean, I'm not any kind of expert on Hindu philosophy or anything like that, so pardon me. But Sadashiva can be viewed as potential energy. And Shakti is the dynamic energy, the kinetic energy, the manifestation of that potential energy. Right? So what we see, this visible universe, this creation that we see is Shakti. And so this Shakti is everywhere. So that brings me to the bhajan. right? So let me try, and don't run away. You're all inside this room. You cannot escape. So the bhajan is Brahmanda here. What? Sorry, I need hard power to remember the song. I managed to take a shot of it. Okay, Brahmanda Pakshigal. Okay, my memory failed. Sorry about that. Right. So the song is Brahmanda Pakshigal Vannu Chekerunna Pugarana Jnana Trumam Ni Amme Pugarana Jnana Drumam. So what is this? And so let me rely on hard technology or hard power to translate. And how is my Malayalam, by the way? Good. You can tell me later during lunch. It says, O Mother, thou art that glorious tree of knowledge into which galaxies like birds enter. So whenever I hear this, it's such a fantastic description. Whoever is the poet, I bow down to him or her. Right? So this mother, this Shakti, is this immense power, and galaxies are entering into her. And she is beyond that also. Okay? But what's the most magical thing is that Shakti, into which these galaxies are entering, is also inside us. Right? And so we are saved. Right? So it's not, there is in Hindu philosophy, there's an analogy is they speak of this Akasha, which is outside, Maha Akasha, and Gat Akasha. So Gat is a container of consciousness. You refer to a pot. Gata is a pot. So this consciousness or energy is inside the pot, and it's also outside. Once you break the pot, there is no difference between the air inside the pot and the air outside. So that Shakti is inside us. And that is the main thing I'd like to talk about, that Shakti or soft power is inside us. And how do we make it manifest? So it's latent. How do we make it manifest is what I'd like to share with you. So again, with humility, I would like to say that I have no control over this Shakti at this point. But I've read a little bit, and I've watched a few people, and I want to share those insights, how these people manifest this Shakti. That's what I'd like to talk about. Okay, so just very briefly, so far in our civilization, in our existence, at least in the last 200 or 300 years after the Industrial Revolution, there's been a lot of importance given to hard power, meaning the use of machinery and money to become more powerful. So we have become so dependent on these machines. And a classic example of that you saw, the visible representation of that was me depending on the cell phone when my memory failed, right? So the memory will fail, and I'm sorry, the cell phone will fail, and what do you do then? Right? So we have to be cognizant and be prepared and aware of the fact that this money might fail us. We may not have enough money. And these machines may fail us. And many of us have witnessed that in our daily lives when the cell phone loses power. What do? Right? So all of this, and the computers may fail us. So then we have to rely on that power that is inside us. Right? So how do we cultivate this power? Right? So, and by the way, when I prepared this talk, I was intended mainly at the students, right? So I'm thinking of them as the audience. I was not expecting other people so much. So bear with me on that, right? So these in our Hindu tradition or in our Indian tradition, these powers are referred to as siddhis. So in Hanuman Chalisa, you have Ashta Siddhi, right? Hanuman has the Ashta Siddhis, 8 Siddhis, Garima, Lagima, Anima. He can become as small as a mosquito. He can become as large as a mountain, and so on. So those powers are beyond the realm of, or beyond the scope of this talk, and I'm not qualified to talk about them. But we have these so-called ordinary powers that we can cultivate, which are right inside us, right? So those are what I'd like to speak about. Okay, so like a professor, there's a long preamble before you get to the talk. Okay, and just one quote from Amma, which I think is very relevant. It says, if an ordinary person is like an electric post, then a tapasvi, someone who is engaged in tremendous spiritual practices and has attained self-realization, is like a power transformer. All of us can become, that's what this quote is saying. We can all become this instrument for this soft power. We are all capable of manifesting this soft power, each and every one of us, right? And that's the main message of this talk today. Right? So, what are the different types of power? Again, I lean on the Hindu Lalita Sahasranama, where there is one name of this divine power, the Shakti, which is Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti, all bundled into one. Right? So, some of you may be chanting the Archana. This is one of the names of this divine Shakti. Right? So, what is this Icha Shakti in English? We refer to as the power of desire. Now, this power, no problem. Manifestation is not a problem. It's constantly bubbling inside us, right? Icha Shakti every day, desires every second, desires appearing and going one after the other. So generally for this human population in the Kali Yuga, creating desires inside us is not so much of an issue, right? It happens automatically, right? So the only thing I'd like to say to the audience is one of the things we want to do to take control of this Icha Shakti or this power of desire is to make an inventory of your desires, right? Especially if you're a student, right? We carry so many things in our mind. So what we should do, this is something, there's a famous, now famous American person, I forget his name, but he created the system called Getting Things Done, GTD. Right? And one of the things he advises is empty your mind onto a spreadsheet or a piece of paper or some other medium. Right? So all your desires, it's good from time to time to write them down, just to know where your mind is. If you carry them in your head all the time, you're just going to be confused and, so it's better to know what you want. Most of the time, even I know a lot of 60-year-old people who don't know what they want to do in their life. Right? So it's good. First step is to write down all your desires. Right? So that's how we take control of this Shakti or Icha Shakti. Right? Next one is you have all these desires. This is a most important problem, I think, in our life for every human being in this world. We have so many desires erupting every second, every minute, every hour, which we want to fulfill, but we can't fulfill all of them. So what do we need to do? We need to discriminate. We have to decide which of these desires we are going to pursue, right? And which of them we are going to set aside, right? So this is where we need jnana, or the power of discrimination, right? So you have so many desires, you have to decide which of them are you going to pursue. Are you going to join a startup? Are you going to join a company? Are you going to take care of your parents? How do you balance all of this? Everyone is going through this struggle, right? And the way to solve this problem, at least partly, is to rely on this Jnana Shakti. And in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, this Jnana Shakti, they say, this knowledge on how to sort out which desires to pursue can come from three sources. The first one is the scripture itself. So we have in every tradition, we have many scriptures. These are authentic sources, and you just open one of them, right? There's a famous technique that the mother in the Pondicherry ashram talks about. So if there is a book, right, some of you can try this. I do this all the time. I don't know how to solve a problem. I just open a holy book and I try to find the answer there, right? And so the scripture can give you an answer. So the second is, suppose you're not so religious minded and maybe you don't believe in the scripture, entirely possible. You approach a person who you think is more wiser than you, somebody who has a lot of wisdom, and we call such a person a guru, right? A guru is one who sheds light, right? Gu means darkness, Ru means light. The guru is the one who takes away the darkness and gives you light, right? So approach the guru It could be a teacher here, it could be your parent, it could be a friend. So that can be the second source of finding out which desire I should pursue, right? And then we have this, okay, we know what we have to pursue. We know we have defined the big inventory of desires. That we have discriminated and removed all those desires which are not worthy of pursuit. And then you need to actually try to fulfill those desires. So that's where Kriya Shakti comes, right? So we need the power of action. We have to fulfill our desires, so we have to act, right? So those are the three main things. We hear Amma say a lot of time for this Kriya Shakti, to you to become successful, we need to have a right action. We have to do the action at the right time, and there is an element of grace. Okay, so these are the three elements. So we could talk a lot about these three things, but in the interest of time, I'm going to keep going here. So some of the common, what I call the normal powers, not the Ashtasiddhis, is what I'd like to specifically talk about. Can somebody, I have my cell phone. When should I stop? 12:53. Okay, no. You can say go on. Okay, I'll take a few minutes extra. Okay, fine. Okay, so the power of imagination. I think Shruti talked about very briefly about the power of imagination. Now, I'm a professor. So there's a famous business saying, those who know, what's the thing they say? Those who do can, the other. Yeah, so I'm a professor, so bear that in mind. But I think a lot about creativity. And I also have a few unfortunate PhD students who haven't. And so we discuss this ideation process, right? So there is, one thing I'd like to say, so when we think of creativity, we think about poets, scientists, we look up to these poets and scientists and artists, and we think they are gifted. So I'd like to say that's partly true, but this creativity, there is a method to this creativity, right? And the message is not so inspiring. The message is hard work, right? So if you are going to be a scientist, keep reading. If you are going to be a singer, I've heard many singers like Unnikrishnan, who's from Kerala. He says the only way to become a better singer is to keep on singing in the bathroom, in the kitchen, and so on and so forth. Right? So keep practicing. So that's one way to do it. But there is another thing that I discovered in the last 20 years. So professors are in the business of creating ideas, right? So how do these ideas manifest? Right? The famous example is somebody was having a bath and then he got a eureka and you're singing in the bathroom and then you jump and you got the idea, right? But I have a better solution, right? You don't want to, all the ideas don't manifest in the bathroom, right? So the better solution is to sit quietly and not think too much. Try as best not to think too much. I'm supposed to be, I think of myself as a sadhaka who does some spiritual practice every day. It turns out when I sit for meditation in the morning, whatever be the form of meditation, and I try to become quiet, right? So this quietness happens, barely happens, never ever happens actually. So thoughts keep occurring, but the mind slows down. And when the mind slows down, because my Ichcha Shakti is always about research, all those ideas start coming out from when I sit for meditation. I don't think my gurus would be very happy about that, but that's something I've observed. Sitting quietly, one is to keep doing this activity over and over, but you want to alternate that with periods of quietness, and then the imagination happens. So initially, when PhD students come to me, they say they don't have ideas, right? And my response is always, it'll happen over time, right? And the way it's happened for me is I keep reading and reading. So this is my profession. You don't want to follow this. All of you don't need to follow this, right? But whatever is your profession, you keep thinking and thinking or reading and reading, the ideas will happen, right? So there is no shortcut to that. But being quiet from time to time, right? Taking a rest also allows those ideas. Even if you're in a business world or a business setting, some quiet time allows you to solve a problem. So meditation, the way I think about meditation is, it's like this analogy is in the scripture. There is in the Yoga Vasishta, there is a parable that is given where you have a tree, there is a crow that sits on the tree, and so as soon as it sits on the tree, unconnected to its sitting, a fruit falls. Right? So the two are unconnected. So you have a problem, you want to create something, you want to solve something. Meditation is like that. Right? You don't sit in meditation to solve the problem. You sit in meditation and avoid thinking about the problem. And when you come out of it, the solution emerges. Right? So that has been my experience. And so I hope that will inspire you to meditate. Right? So that's my thing on the imagination. So that is one power, that Shakti. Remember this Para Shakti, the Adi Shakti, Maha Shakti, which is twirling all the universes on the little finger, right, is manifest inside you. And in one form, there is this power of imagination. Right? The second is this power of concentration. And no matter what you want to do in your life, whether you want to be a cook, an engineer, or an Indian chief, you need the power of concentration. Right? So you want to cultivate this power of concentration periodically. So one of the main things in our education system, whether it's kindergarten or high school or college, we neglect this as educators. Right? So we need more classes where we focus on this power of developing the power of concentration. Right? And so without further ado, what is this concentration? It's the ability to focus your attention on a single object for some period of time. Okay. So interestingly, I read a book long ago by this yogi whose name is not well known. His name is Shivapuri Baba. He lived in the 17th century. He lived for 150 years. He had a tiger as a pet. He walked around the world. These are some of his famous things that he did. And he was from Kerala. And at the age of 20 or 25, he decided, I want to realize God. He went off and lived in the forest for about 45 years with no company. He met no one for 45 years. And at one point, he had this aha moment, right? And he came out, and then he started, he traveled around the world on foot, except when he had to take a ship, right? One of the things he says, in India, we have this, I'll finish this point quickly. In the Hindu system, time is not divided into hours. It's divided into muhurtas, right? And one muhurta, anybody here who knows, I'm going to be inspired by Shruti and ask the audience this question. What is one muhurta equal in terms of in minutes? Anybody? Okay, it's 48 minutes. Okay, so now at least there is one thing I educated you about in this 30 minutes, right? So 48 minutes. So he says, if you're able to concentrate, this is a really worthwhile goal to think about. If you are able to concentrate on one object for 48 minutes, all the problems in your life are gone. That is samadhi, the end of sorrow, right? So you pick an object, not your girlfriend or boyfriend, not chocolate ice cream, it melts. Pick something which a guru teaches you or something which inspires you and concentrate on it. Try to concentrate on it for 48 minutes. Now, it turns out, Amma says this, it's very, very hard. For me, I'm not able to concentrate on an object for even a few seconds. So why am I here? Smita, she called me, right? So here are there is a Buddhist monk called Shinzen. If you're interested, you can Google it after this. Don't open your cell phone now. You can Google after the talk. So his name is Shinzen Young. He's an American person who went to Japan and lived in a monastery for a long time. And this is an exercise I'd like for all of the interested people in this audience to participate in. And the way so this meditation, what he says is meditation or this concentration you can use your senses, you can take your senses, divide them, and focus on each of these senses one at a time or together. Okay? So if you think about it, how many senses are there? 5, great, okay. So 5 senses. The sense of smell is going to be something that happens only when you're cooking or you're eating, or if you're a meditator when the incense is, right? So it's a very, very temporary sense. It's not very active. Similarly, the sense of taste happens only when you're eating. So when you're meditating, you're not eating, I hope, right? So the sense of smell and the sense of taste we can set aside. That leaves us with 3 senses: the sense of sight, the sense of hearing, and the sense of touch. These are the 3 things. Okay, so what I'd like to do in this exercise, so if you look at this, so you have see, which is using your sense of sight, hear, which is using your sense of hearing, and feel is the sense of touch. Okay, so in some meditation schools of thought, what they do is labeling. There is a labeling exercise. So what we'll do here is we will do these. There are 6. So if you take these see, hear, and feel, you have 3. Simple arithmetic, right? And you can see out, hear out, and feel out. Or you can see in, hear in, and feel in. So that gives you 6 types of meditation. So what Shinzen says is all types of meditation can be fit into these 6 categories. And so you pick one of them that works for you and which helps you in your life. So that's one of my messages. So how does see out look? See out means don't close your eyes. It's meditating with your eyes open. We are all doing it all the time. Okay? So when you walk, instead of thinking of the sad story of your life, why me? Why am I here in this universe? Why am I going through? Instead, practice see meditation. Just see what is in front of you. Just see, see, see. Remember, there's a nursery rhyme, sailor. So see, just keep, when you're walking, become meditative when you're walking and just keep seeing what is in front of you. Similarly, when the hearing is you close your eyes. So one sense is gone. That leaves us, so smell is gone, taste is gone, sight is gone, and you have only 2 senses left. One is touch and the other is hearing. So what we can do now is try to practice this. It's hard to do this in this auditorium, which is soundproof, but we'll still try. Let's just close our eyes. It's a break from the drone of my voice. Okay, so close your eyes for a second. And for just a few seconds, try to focus on the sounds that you're hearing. Become a good listener. And as you hear a sound, the technique is label the sound as hear. 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 Thank you very much. Right. So that is a one type of meditation, right? So where you're just focusing on your sense of hearing. When you're walking with your eyes open, you can also focus on your sense of hearing and your sense of sight. Instead of thinking, like I said, about the story of your life, get out of that and focus on this. And remember, what is the goal? When you do that, you're trying to solve a problem or you're facing a difficulty, you're escaping from the problem temporarily and focusing on your sense of sight and your sense of sound. That gives your brain some rest. When you come back, you can attack the problem better, right? So this is something which is freely and readily available to you. You don't need to go to YouTube or follow any guru, right? Just whenever, as much as possible during the day, practice see meditation and hear meditation. Similarly, touch, I don't need to speak about that. When you're sitting on your chair, you can feel your backside in contact with the chair. your feet are in contact with the ground, etc., etc. So when you close your eyes, what you can do is you can alternate between the sense of touch and the sense of hearing, right? So alternate. So your brain will not be able to pay attention to just one sense at a point in time. So what you can do is take advantage of that feature of your mind and switch back from touch and hear, right? So you're you're going to say touch here, right? And to that extent, you're away from your world of thought, and you're developing your power of concentration, right? So this power of concentration, so why it seems very simple and maybe mundane, but in your external world, when you're doing activity in the world, these three powers are what you use: your sight, your hearing, and your touch. And when you actively take time out during the day, just 5 minutes, and cultivate these senses, make them stronger and stronger. When you go out into your jobs, into your studies, these senses will become better and better and better. 5 minutes a day into 365 is some huge number, 1000, what is it, 1825 or something, right? 1825 minutes in a year will make you better professionals, right? So these senses, you want to cultivate these senses, right? So that is see, hear, see out, hear out, feel out. See in, hear and feel in. Let's not waste time too much on this. This would require you close your eyes, and some of you may fall asleep, right? But basically, when you see something, when you close your eyes, that image is going to appear in your brain when you try to recall that image, right? So that is see in, right? We all do this all the time. When we close our eyes, what happens? Either images appear or your chatter appears. The chatter, daily chatter. I want this, I want this, shouldn't have done this, you, right? So that I talk is happening, talk, and there is these images. My mommy, my daddy, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, their images keep, and the enemies also, the images keep coming, right? So images are happening, and the chat is happening. That is your in, see out. See in and hear in. So rather than doing that, what do the scriptures say? What do the gurus say? Pick a neutral object and focus your attention on that, right? Train your mind to focus on a specific. So it could be the image of a deity, a flower, or the sun, right? That could be the image you focus on. Or it could be a sound like a mantra, where you repeat the mantra over and over again to the exclusion of the world of thought. Okay, so that's how these techniques work. The other one I will skip in the interest of time: movement of awareness. So what maybe I'll speak briefly about it. So we are not able to concentrate on one object, right? So in the Kali Yuga, that's a problem, right? So what did the yoga teachers do? Rather than concentrate on one object, right, we move our awareness. So there is this office boy syndrome. I don't know if you've gone to a government bank or a government office like KSEB. I was a consultant for KSEB. There will be an office boy, and that office boy will be moving around and round and round. So they will say, Ramu, get this file, Ramu, get this file, etc., etc. So our mind is like this office boy, moving round and round and round and round, right? So we know the name. So let's take advantage of that. We know our mind is going to keep circulating in very unstructured way. Rather than making it move around in an unstructured way, we give it a series of instructions. So move your consciousness or awareness from the top of your head to the tip of your nose, to the base of your throat, to your right shoulder, to your elbow, to your and so on and so forth. So this is what we call the 61-point exercise. I wanted to do it, but I think I'll skip it. If people are interested, we can talk about it. This is the basic, if you do the 61-point exercise, for those who are interested, this is the basic way to judge how much concentration you have. So if you traverse the body, 61 points in the body, then it will give you an idea. And if you're still aware of yourself at the end of the 61 points, that tells you how good your concentration is. Okay, so that's the power of concentration. 112, I'll try to do this quicker. So willpower, this is another thing, another form of power. So power of imagination, power of concentration, willpower, right? This is what we need to do that Kriya Shakti. So this power of imagination is related to Ichcha Shakti. Concentration is related to Jnana Shakti, and this willpower is Kriya Shakti. So anything we want to do, we want to succeed, we need this willpower. So I'll end this talk with these brief words on willpower, and this is especially aimed at the students, and this is a framework I would like to share with you, which I learned from many teachers. And how do you develop willpower? How do you succeed in life? So the first thing is to define your goal. What do you want to do? Right? And like I said, you want to write down your goal, right? Write it down, and then you'll have a better chance of achieving your goal, right? So there's a famous comic artist, what's his name? Dilbert Comics, Scott Adams. And his claim to fame is before he became this great comic artist, every day he would write down, I want to become the greatest comic artist in the world. Every day, 100 times. Right? So whatever is your goal, you write it down. Define your goal. See it clearly. Visualize it clearly. That's the first step. Then what you do is you know what you want to do, and then you have to acquire the resources to achieve your goal. So the first step in Hinduism we say is dharma. So I'm going to use poetic license here and say defining your goal is your goal becomes your dharma, your swadharma. Second is, if you know what your dharma is, what your goal is, then you have to get artha. You need resources to achieve your goal, right? So what you need to acquire resources. And so you define what do you need to achieve your goal, right? You need time, you need money, and you need your mind to be able to focus on your goal, right? So these are some of your resources. So budget your time, budget your resources, budget your mind. So that is artha. Third is kama, which is usually translated as enjoyment. But I would like to use a different definition of that. We don't want to be too much in the enjoyment business, right? So what we mean by kama is, exclude all those desires which are contrary to your goal. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa said, if you want to go east, why are you walking west? Right? This is the problem we all face. We know what we want, but we are doing activities which are not in consonance with that goal. Right? So write down the goal clearly and then define what you need to achieve your goal. And then you say, let me not pursue those goals which are inconsistent with my defined goal. And then you get success. This is the formula for success, whether you want to be a cook, an engineer, or an Indian chief. Again, I say that again. Okay, so that's willpower. Lastly, I'd like to end by saying the biggest power that you would, most important power that I'd like for you to think about is the power of silence. I would like to share just one thing and stop here. In my personal life, I found that this power of silence has been super beneficial. So whenever I'm about to fall sick, this is something that I practice, and by Amma's grace, it's worked. When I have a headache or a stomach ache, I just go and sit down and I breathe. And I just do my breathing technique. And after 10 minutes or 15 minutes, 80% of the headache or 90% of the stomach ache is gone. And that's the power of silence, right? So sit for a few minutes every day and cultivate this power of silence. And these 4 powers is what I call the soft power. So the power of imagination, the power of concentration, willpower, and the power of silence. I hope and I pray to Divine Mother that all of you can cultivate this power and become successful in whatever you want to achieve. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. Now the floor is open for questions, and the audience may put forth their questions right now.
So I am Murli from School of Business. It is a very interesting topic, and I teach about negotiations theoretically. As you said, I am also a professor, so we don't do, we teach. So how does this power of silence and power of seeing that can improve the negotiation skills? If you can help us, shall be obliged, sir.
Let me think about it. Let me go into
silence
to access the answer. I mean, it's kind of evident to me that before you go into, rather than answer your question, I want to suggest a technique. Mm-hmm. may not be the most appropriate thing to say, but I'd like to suggest it because I heard this from a spiritual teacher. So if you're going to negotiations, it's almost like super obvious to me that you want to be quiet for some time, either in prayer or in silence before you go into the negotiation. That gives you a certain aura of strength, right? That is my experience. Right? The other thing I would suggest as a practical answer to this power of negotiation. So this is something a teacher taught me, is bow down. So I go and meet my dean. I go and meet another professor. I'm going into the situation where possibly hostile situation. What I do generally practice is I bow down to the soul of the other person. And there are 10 people. As I'm walking from my office to the meeting room, I bow down to each soul. I visualize that person's soul, and I bow not to that body, but to the soul, and I just keep bowing down, right? And in a way, bowing down in silence. And so far, it's worked. I've not gotten into trouble uh, so far. So any meeting, any negotiation, my practical, really valuable tip to you is be a little silent, pray. Before each class, I pray, right? I pray to Amma and I say, make me an instrument of your peace. I say a long prayer that may be too long for this session, but right, I pray, I make me an instrument. May every word of mine become your word. May every action of mine become your action. Right? May every thought of mine be your thought. And because I'm a professor, I say, may everything I write on the board also may it become your word, and so on. So this prayer and being silent before you go into a negotiation means you're going to sit across the table and negotiate. And so doing that is very beneficial. That's been my experience. The other thing is, I don't want to talk about negotiation. You are an expert on that. So,
No, sir.
no, just one thing I heard from another sant, and the basic thing is when you go into a negotiation for your salary or anything, he said that first you make an offer, then the other person makes an offer, and then try to find something in between. So that is the process, at least the sattvic way to approach a negotiation. Right. So, and I think many of you are business people, so I shouldn't be speaking about that. But that was his advice to me when I asked him this question. Right. Make an offer, let's see what the other person offers, and then try to see something where you will fall in between. Right. That way, both will win. Win-win. We were talking about soft power as win-win. Right.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful insights.
I just want to share, sir. We do have a leadership program in bank, and McKinsey was doing that. And this unified mindfulness, we were introduced to this unified mindfulness by McKinsey. All their trainers were experts in this, and Shinzen is the leader of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have been undergoing that continuously for that. Then that too during COVID period. So it is very helpful for us in a big way. It's a very, very good relaxation technique, actually.
Thank you very much, sir.
So actually, I'm asking this question on behalf of all the students also and myself also. You alluded to the fact that when you have some headache or something coming up, you sit quietly and focus upon breathing, and the illness kind of dissipates. So maybe you could share that technique that you follow, if there is some technique that you follow. What exactly you do?
It's not really a technique. It's breathing. We all know how to breathe. So we just sit down, and I have an altar where I meditate or do puja, etc. So I sit in front of the altar and just watch my breath. So this is the Vipassana. If you've done a Vipassana course, what do they do? Just say, so this is the sense of touch. So you feel the air, the warm air entering your nostrils. And as you, so Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Buddhist monk, says, when you inhale, just remember that you are inhaling. So as I inhale, I'm aware that I'm inhaling. As I exhale, I'm aware that I'm exhaling. Right? So that's all I do for 10 minutes, and it's a miracle. It works. You don't need Advil or Brufen or Digene. It works. It's worked every time. I don't know, it may be grace, but more than effort. But so it is just a matter of breathing. So if you want to do a visualization, you can say, breathing in, I'm calm. Breathing out, I'm at peace. Right? If you feel inspired, or breathing in, I feel like I'm a mountain. Breathing out, I'm a flower. That's what Thich Nhat Hanh has, a series of these meditations. Right? But it's just a matter of sitting down. The body can, self-healing, the soft power of self-healing is magical. Brahmanda Shakti. That Shakti is inside us, the healing power is inside us. With all due respect, we are in a hospital. And so with all due respect to the modern medical systems, they have a place. Sometimes there is no, either you need a coffee or you need an Advil to solve the headache. Right? But try this first. Right? If you're desperate, sometimes you need to pop a medicine. But I think this will work for all of you. Right? If you just sit for 10 minutes whenever you... The other thing, I will just say one more thing. Sorry, I'll take one more thing that I practice. This is a secret that I would like to share with you. And it's kind of inspired by Amma's meditation, Maum, white flower meditation. But I had been practicing this for like 3 or 4 years. Whenever there is a point in time, a second, a fraction of a second when you know you're falling sick. If you are really aware, all of you will know that. Right? When you're just getting a cold or just starting to get the glimmer of a headache, at that point what I do is I visualize a white light, golden light coming from Divine Mother entering my body. Every time I do this. And I want to say this with all humility, and sorry if this offends some of you. A lot of time we fall sick because of self-pity. We want to fall sick. We just want people to give us attention and love us and stroke us and say, there, no, I'll take care of you, right? But if you just don't want to sick because you want to be productive in your life, you invite this energy, and it's worked for me by God's grace so far, right? So that is something you can consciously, I just say, I don't want to be sick. I want to go to these class and sit in Smita ma'am's class and listen to her. I don't want to sleep in the bed. So that's my...
Thank you so much.
Now I request Gopi Kumar sir to hand over the memento to Mr. Srinivasan Rangan as a token of our appreciation.
How long you're going to borrow? Let's just say you're borrowing it for 5 years. So you're not going to make any payments. You just borrow. 5 years later, you calculate this.